Welcome to the Irish NFL Show in association with QuinnBet. We're live across X, Facebook, YouTube, and on our own website, irishnflshow.com. Stay tuned, incidentally, for all kinds of Irish NFL Show bonus content this weekend, because we will, of course, be going the full gun, building up to the first ever NFL regular season game in Dublin. We have a separate preview of that game, which, of course, is between the Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That will be available first thing tomorrow morning. Keep it with us over the weekend, of course, as we build up. You'll see us around town as well. If you are attending the game and you see our handsome mugs, do walk up and say hello. We'd only be too delighted to see you. And, you know, obviously we appreciate greatly the support we get from the Irish NFL Show faithful every day across our social channels when we're live, and all of you picking up the podcast wherever you get your podcast content. And do please remember to like and subscribe. You can feel the buzz around Dublin. Those of you who are based here will see it wherever you go. Brian has the Dublin ball there. For those of you watching, you won't hear that one back on the podcast, but trust us, it fits in his hand perfectly. He'd be throwing a spiral with that one, and you should only see him laser them in there when he has the opportunity to do so. Right, we got a lot of games to preview apart from Vikings Steelers. Thursday Night Football preview is, of course, a separate podcast. You can pick that up. 6 p.m. Sunday, right in the, I was going to say the early window, but technically the early window is right here in Dublin. But we start off with Eagles Bucks. Eagles and Bucks, of course, two of the undefeated teams left in the league as we head into week 4. Eagles, of course, coming off that dramatic comeback win over the Rams. Bucks got to 3-0 over the weekend too. And the Bucks, incidentally, have won 6 of the last 7 games against the Eagles. So they do have the better of this matchup over recent seasons, including, of course, a playoff win the year before last. So they know what they're doing against this Eagles team. Going into this one, not necessarily sure I see the Eagles as invincible. We talked about them last week and how they don't have any weaknesses heading into the game with the Rams and that they're so hard to beat. They proved that coming out of that Rams game. But I think what they also proved is that they can absolutely be got at, and it'll be really interesting to see how this Bucks offense goes against an Eagles defense that struggled in week 1 against the Cowboys, although they came out on top there. Got the top taken off a couple of times and gave up a couple of big explosive plays to CeeDee Lamb. Last week we saw how the Eagles can lean in all facets of the game and pull out strength where they're not experiencing the best of times on other facets of their play. With special teams, they got 2 blocks. They also were able to air the ball out a little bit, and A.J. Brown proved a bit of a nightmare matchup against 2 of the more undersized L.A. Rams cornerbacks, and that ultimately led to 2 crucial passing plays for them, including a touchdown in the corner of the end zone, which got the Eagles back into it. 3 trips to the red zone, 3 touchdowns for the Eagles, proving that they can rely on Jalen Hurts' arm as well as his legs. The Bucks, of course, are rolling themselves, and I don't think they're going to come into this anything other than confident, based on the fact that they've had the better of the matchup with the Eagles in recent times, and also on the fact that I'm not necessarily sure the Eagles are at full steam, albeit that they got over a very strong Rams team last weekend. I give the Bucks the slight edge in this one. I think that Baker momentum and that Bucks strong start to the season will actually win the day. I think if you're asking me who will have the best record at the end of the season, that's going to be the Eagles. But I think the Bucks might just catch them at the right time to cause a bit of damage here. And I'm going to go slightly against the prevailing wisdom here and pick Tampa Bay for this one. Kieran, who you got?
Yeah, I think I might join you there in the prevailing with the prevailing wind. Hurts is 1-4 against the Bucks, the most of any teams he's ever played against. And you know the Bucks, they're getting by, and they're doing what they need to do to win games so far quietly. I wouldn't say spectacular, but what worries me is that the Eagles are a perfect 8 for 8 in touchdowns in the end zone. So you got 2. This is one of, we talked last week about the Eagles Rams game. This is another one that I can't wait to watch. 2 3-0 teams, like you said. Both teams have highly explosive offenses that haven't really taken off yet. We haven't really seen Saquon kind of let loose just yet. Last week we did see, Brown and Devonta Smith do their work and do their thing. But, the Eagles, especially with Saquon in the first couple of games, they're having trouble with second and third downs. They're not quite able to get into that flow just yet and converting those third downs and keep that ball moving. We know what they can do, obviously, on 4th and 1, but they're still, they're still kind of, I don't want to say sleepwalking through their games, but they're, obviously that they're so powerful, they're getting by. But I really love this matchup for the Bucks. I love what Baker's been lately. I love what he can do. When you look at these 2 teams, you got the Eagles lined up against the Bucks defense with Vita Vea, Levante David, Yaya Diaby, and all those guys. And then you have the the matchup with the wide receivers and the secondary for the Bucks. So I really like Baker at home. Obviously, if this game was in Philly, I'd have a different, perspective. I'm sure the line would be a lot different than -3.5 for the Eagles. But, the Bucks have played them hard. We remember a couple of years ago that playoff game, and I'm sure the Bucks are remembering that too. The only thing is, I just have concerns with the offense, with the Bucks offense that Mike Evans may not be out there. I think he's a big blow. But saying that, Igbuka, who's been an absolute marvel, is a great stand-in for that spot. The run game is not really going the way for the Bucks either. Bucky Irvin hasn't got much going on the ground, kind of like Saquon. But what's fascinating is that both offenses can just erupt and put up 40 on each other without much issue. So I'm looking.
You wonder if that's sneakily the kind of weakness, or one of the few weaknesses. Having said that, they have none earlier, completely contradicting myself, that the Eagles can be got at, because Blake Corum and Kyron Williams made some hay for the Rams last week when they were rolling.
Yeah, and the Rams are smart after that loss, because they had that game, despite the fact that I think most of us thought, even though the Eagles were down 26-7, that they were going to come back and manage to bludgeon the Rams. But this Eagles team can be got at, and we'll get at the Chiefs later on too. But this Eagles team can be got at. They haven't really got into the stride yet. They have obviously flashes of brilliance with the wide receivers, but this is probably a good time to get them. You're playing them in Tampa. I think they got there a couple of days early to acclimatize to the heat. So, it's obviously going to be hot down here. So, it's a good time to get them. And like you, Connor, I like the Bucks in this one.
It is hot in Florida, and you might pick up in the background a little bit of an electrical storm, to put it mildly, in Kieran's background, who's literally putting his life at risk to join us this evening. We hope the power doesn't go down at any point. A little bit of a storm going on in Jacksonville there, or near Jacksonville. Brian, your pick before we move on.
Yeah, I get the logic, but I'll stick with the Eagles. Week 1, week 2, I would say tough performance in terms of getting the win. Last week, I think, will actually bring them back to the reality that they really need to start these games quick, get out the road early, because last week they were very sloppy, and they kind of got away with last week's game. I think that actually might give them, enough for them to refocus this week, get a big win on the road. So yeah, Eagles for me.
At Foxborough, meanwhile, Brian, the Patriots welcome the Carolina Panthers, fresh off a shutout and a 30-0 win over the Falcons. Patriots woulda, shoulda, coulda to a certain extent against the Steelers, had their problems there, but they're favoured by 5.5 points here.
Yeah, and a couple of weeks back, you would have looked at this when Patriots fans, and we were in our selections, Patriots fans were getting excited about the season, looking at the schedule. This is a foregone conclusion, but you're coming into a game where we've seen the Panthers over the course of 6 quarters, shall we say, kind of re-establish themselves. They played really well in the second half in Arizona, came up short, really dominant performance last week. And against the Patriots team, they right now will feel kind of very hard done by that. They didn't win last week. A number of fumbles, similar circumstances against the Raiders in week 1. Game was there for them, a number of turnovers. I'll stick with the Patriots. I'm not comfortable with this one. This is kind of one of the ones of the weekend you look at and you kind of wonder, like, the line is for me, is probably a bit of an overline. I would have thought this would have been nearer a field goal game. I think if the Patriots can shore up their fumble issues, which they've had in the run game, establish the run, kind of these methodical drives, I think they'll I wouldn't say they'll lead to a win, but I think they'll find a way. I think the Panthers are on the right track, but something tells me Vrabel in this kind of game finds a way to navigate the victory.
Kieran, I know you're a big fan of this Patriots defense. We saw some sparks from their offense over the past couple of weeks. It hasn't all quite clicked for them, but there are very promising signs. There
are, and I'm still high on them, despite the fact that 1 and 2. The offense, like you said, haven't really got going. This is I wouldn't say it's a. I do think the line is a little high at -6, but like Brian said, the Patriots have been real sloppy with the ball. Carolina on the other side, I mean, their running game is non-existent. I mean, they haven't had a running back run for 10 or more yards at all in the league just yet. And, the Pats have turned the ball over on a whopping 21% of their possessions, which is, that's when you think of that stat, that's crazy. Both teams have started off slow. I mean, I did see a little thing on CBS earlier on with Vrabel about the special teams for the Panthers. He's keeping an eye on that. The kicker's been kind of switching up the kickoffs. He's doing some knuckleballs. He's kicking deep. He's kicking short. So that's something to look out for on Sunday, because the Panthers are kind of deploying that special teams tactics to kind of keep the Patriots on the toes. But I'm just waiting for this Patriots team to start going, get going. I know the one thing they're missing is that kind of downfield threat, that a lot of other teams have. They just, Drake Mays is struggling to get the ball downfield. The running game's okay. I mean, that hasn't really been the issue, but it's getting the ball downfield, and obviously the turnovers have been a big issue too. What really could turn this is if Christian Gonzalez makes the game. He's still a game time decision. I think he's listed as doubtful. And I still have some concerns over the Panthers secondary as well. So there's question marks all over the field for me. I think the Patriots are good value for I think it's -6 is the line.
5.5.
Yeah. The Panthers definitely flattered to deceive last week. I mean, that was just an anomaly, and we'll get to the Falcons a little later. But I think the Panthers are still struggling. I picked them to have a little better of a start than they've had so far, and I'm not quite sure if Young is back or if he's progressed as much as he showed last year. So I'm going to take the Patriots. I think they just have too many weapons. For me, for the Panthers, it's basically Ted McMillan at this stage is the offense, and it's going through him. I mean, he's got 260 receiving yards through 3 games so far. He is their offense. But with the Patriots, they have a little bit more with the running game with Stevenson, and I think they're going to come out on top, especially being at home. Panthers, I think it's going to be 1-3 for them. They're going to start struggling now in the month of October. So I like the Patriots.
Yeah, for a lot of the reasons you've outlined, I'm going in the same direction here, Kieran. Didn't like the Pats' 5 turnovers last week. That does make me slightly nervous, but I think that Panthers win over the Falcons was an absolute mirage. You look at a lot of the things that weren't clicking and weren't going right for the Panthers in that game. Just a terrible effort, unfortunately, from the Falcons. I think that was an anomaly. I don't think the Panthers are as good as that score made them look by any manner of means, and I'm not necessarily sure that 5.5 points overly flatters the Patriots, but we shall see. We move on to Saints-Bills next, where the Saints at 0-3 travel to one of the other unbeaten teams, the Bills 3-0, who are absolutely rolling. This could be, if you were to look at the spread, the rocking chair game of the weekend. I'm going to reserve judgment on that because I have another one in mind here. I thought the Saints gave it a good effort against the 49ers last week. I thought performed a lot better than I expected them to against a very strong San Francisco defense. Whatever about slotting Mac Jones in and the Saints defense getting to grips with an underpowered 49ers offense who did enough to get it done nonetheless, put up 26 points. Rattler moved the ball well. They got 3 TDs. Alvin Kamara's looking like he's back to something like Alvin Kamara form. They were able to run the ball well. So I think they'll give the Bills plenty of it. I think 15.5 points, I won't say it flatters the Bills because we all know what Buffalo is capable of, but I don't think this one is going to be quite as one-sided as that line suggests. I am going for the Bills, but I think the Saints will probably manage to cover the spread here. Brian?
No, I'll go against you on that. I acknowledge and accept where you're coming from, but that particular game, which we're referring to, was a home game, Connor, against the 49ers. We saw a very different team when they went on the road in Seattle last week. They got blown out. Again, we've seen the Bills in the round, but way similar to last week, as everyone assumed they were just going to steamroll the Dolphins. And the Dolphins have skill in the game when they play against the Bills. They find ways to stay in these games, but everyone expects them to blow them out with that 11.5 points. So I get where you're coming from. 15.5 seems a very steep line, and everybody will look at the line this weekend as opposed to the game itself. I think the Bills will win, but I think the Bills have bigger games ahead and may just ease off the gas to allow maybe the Saints to cover. But I think the Saints are in a world of trouble. But me and Kieran will be up close and personal against the Saints team the following week, because that's when they play the Giants, and they'll fancy them chances, and the Giants will fancy their chances. But this weekend is too big an ask. Right now, you're asking me which team are the cream of the crop, and despite everyone nodding on the Eagles, I still think the Bills right now are the best team in the league. It's the Bills rocking chair, but 15.5 is a huge number.
Kieran, your pick before we move on.
Yeah, it's got to be the Bills. I mean, I think the line is going to move up even higher as we get closer to game time. But yeah, it's got to be I can't see a way the Saints are competitive in this game at all.
Basement battle in the AFC South coming up next as the Titans travel to Houston. Texans favored by 7 points here. Neither of these teams have looked at it at all this season. You've got to say it's not one of the ones that's leaping out to you, but it's still an interesting tie in that if you look at where the Texans are compared to where they've been over the last 2 years, we would have expected that they would have done more to address their issues in the offseason. CJ Stroud still seems to be running for his life far too often. Texans defense, though, I think completely gives them the edge in this one. I think it's going to be another tough day at the office for Cam Ward and that Titans offense. Titans, meanwhile, don't seem to be the team best placed to take advantage of that Houston O-line. they really didn't get it done last week. They really didn't get it home at all in their own matchup. And I'm kind of worried that they may end up, even in this one, being a little bit overmatched. I think Texans are good value for that 7 points at home. Kieran?
Yeah, I think so. This is the race at the bottom of the AFC South. I mean, these two teams are. I mean, it's a shame for the Texans because they've got so much talent on that team, but the injuries and the O-line is it's borderline negligible or negligent what they put out in the field there. It really is. Stroud is out there running for his life, and it's tough to watch for a skilled quarterback like him because it almost gives the impression or the illusion that he's not good, but he's just got no protection out there. He's running for his life, and it's tough to watch sometimes. So you got a combination of the Texans O-line, which is awful, and the Titans just give penalties away for fun. Titans, what they do have in their favor.
CJ Stroud's career is looking like Benjamin Button at the moment. Like, rookie quarterback comes into a failing franchise under a new coach and they're rebuilding. Usually this is what you'd expect to see year one, and you'd hope by year three to get to what he delivered in year one. It's like it all came the opposite way around for him.
It is. It's tough. It really is because, I obviously last year I picked the Texans to go all the way to the Super Bowl, but that window shut real quick. I mean, I was so high on the wide receiver room that they had, but that window just shut and the door shut with it too. So Texans, I mean, they've had 3 narrow losses if you want to look at it that way. They could have won all 3 games. And the Titans, the only thing that's worth watching is Cam Ward. He's just, that catch or that throw in week 2 was just phenomenal. And he's out there basically, running against the wind, trying to do what he can to keep the team in the game and stay competitive. I mean, Callahan at this stage is a dead man walking. Him and McDaniel are competing for probably the first P45 of the year. Stroud he's just struggling out there. 3 picks and only 2 touchdowns so far. It's tough to watch him. I mean, the running game is non-existent for the Texans as well. And like you said, the D is really what's been keeping them in the games that they've lost narrowly. So they have that to hang their hat on. The Titans, unfortunately, they have a decent D, but not to the level of the Texans. But the Titans' offense is putrid. I mean, I've said it before, putting Ridley out there and Van Jefferson for a quarterback like Cam Ward in his rookie year, you've got to give him more weapons than those guys. I think the Texans are good value for this. It's at home. The crowd will get behind them. The first home win of the year. And unfortunately, the Titans, it's going to be a rough first year for the rookie quarterback. But like we all know, it's if Callahan or whenever Callahan goes, that job is going to be so desirable. You got a rookie quarterback who's going to be a superstar, and you've got oodles of cap space, and that's just going to be a team that's going to be on the ascent. But it's not going to be this year. It's going to be 0-4 for the Titans, and another rough Sunday for Nashville fans.
Brian, your pick.
Yeah, I'm not signing off on the Texans season being done just yet. If they lose on Sunday, it is, but I still think there's AFC South storylines to be had. I think the Texans can find their way back into the division, but they got to get out of the line this Sunday, and I think they will. I think this is primed for a big victory this Sunday.
All right, we'll take a quick break.
Great odds. You're in control. You always bet responsibly, and you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
We're back with Browns at Lions. Lions favourite by 10 points in this one, but the Browns had an NFC North matchup last week against the Packers where they weren't favoured by any manner of means, and they came out on the right side of that one. So could it be 2 in a row? Short answer for me is no. I know the Lions are coming off short rest after that Monday Night Football effort against the Ravens, but I watched the Detroit team roll into Baltimore and break that Ravens team. I know the Ravens lost to the Bills in week 1, but they lost to the Bills because the Bills were rolling the dice. They had to get Josh Allen to strap on the Superman cape. They needed explosive plays, and they got them. The Lions rolled in there and just did whatever they wanted with Baltimore on both sides of the ball. It was one of the more impressive wins I've seen in a long time. If we thought it might take the Lions a little while to hit their straps into the season and the whole question over replacing the coordinators, particularly after what we saw in week 1 against the Packers, I got to say, I cannot wait for the Lions-Packers rematch next to come up next later on this season, because this Lions team look like they're playing with righteous fury at the moment. They look like they're absolutely at war with the world. so impressive what they did to Baltimore, like running up the gut, smashing the Ravens out of the way. Lamar looked bamboozled by the end of that game. He had nowhere to go. They contained Derrick Henry so well. How many teams have completely struggled with those two weapons, not knowing which way to pick their poison? Lions said, you give us whatever you got, we'll take it all, and we'll give you back more of it. If anything, I thought that game by the end was closer than it should have been. Essentially, a Ravens touchdown in garbage time allowed them to save some of their blushes. I know people talk about the Eagles being the best team in the league or the Bills being the best team in the league, as you said, Brian. I still think the Lions are close to, if not the best team, certainly on the basis of that game. I know it's only one game. We don't overreact to small sample sizes, but that's as good a win as I've seen so far this season. I was impressed by what the Browns defense managed to do with the Packers last week. They got nothing going on the other side of the ball. I just don't see them being able to hang in this one in any way, shape, or form. They may keep it closer than the 10 points, but I think that Packers win may be something that'll sustain them for a couple of weeks. I think it'll be a while before they see a win against a team this good again. Kieran.
Yeah, I mean that Lions Ravens. I mean imagine that was in Santa Clara next February. I mean, people would sign up for that in a minute. And it really did have a playoff feel to it until the Lions, like you said, just I mean, they were phenomenal. 90 points in 2 games now. We don't have to talk about the Ravens win this one, but the Ravens and the Lions just dominated. I mean, they're just that offense. I mean, how long ago does week 1 feel now? I mean, it's a long distant memory, and the Lions are back to doing what they usually do. And they're averaging 3.5 points per drive. They've scored a touchdown on 52.5% of their drives. And they're just a monster. They're just a juggernaut right now, and teams are fearing him. Campbell's in his bag, as they say. Sonic and Knuckles are up and running. It's just everything's running smoothly, almost like we've been talking about with the Eagles the last couple of weeks. And, like you said, it's probably a toss-up between who's the best team in the NFC right now between those two. It really is. That they kind of have that the 24 feel, the 2024 feel, the Lions from last year. They're just dominant in every way. I mean, and like you said, with Cleveland, I mean, Jim Schwartz has probably been up till 2 a.m. every night this week, just trying to figure out schemes. So he's going to have to come out with, I don't know what he's going to be able to do against this team because, notwithstanding what he did last week, I mean, that was a phenomenal performance. They just shut down the Packers left, right, and center. But I don't think there's with the weapons that the Lions have. The Packers have some nice wide receivers and a decent run game, but the Lions will kill you from any which way in this game. And the Browns are going to suffer. Non-existent offense, really. Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy's your wide receivers. I'll take a pass on that. And Joe Flacco looked really old last week. He just looked lumbering. He looked every bit of his 40, whatever he is, 40. I mean, I can't talk, but shoot, he was out there. He was stumbling around and he looked aged. I mean, the Cleveland D line is what's going to save them. If anything, in this game, it's going to keep them alive for a certain extent. But nobody can really see, I think, any possibility the Lions just completely wipe them out. And I think the line is 10. I think last time I checked, and I mean, that's being generous, I think. But I mean, it's going to be the Lions all day. There's no other scenario you can see. There's way too many weapons on that team to come short. It's not like when the Ravens, play them and stumbled, and Ravens, but the Lions won't make that mistake. I can't see that happen. Home game with the crowd electric as they usually are. Man, give me the Lions.
Brian?
I know it's only 3 games, but the Browns are averaging 15.6 points a game. Connor, they ain't winning that going into Detroit. It's going to be 30 points average for the Lions, give or take. They're probably even more angry after the week 1 than they even were going into the season because obviously the people felt they should have went to the Super Bowl last year. It's not a 50-burger type of game. It has a feel of a real blowout type of scenario. Lions all day.
Chargers going to MetLife, Kieran. Any chance that the Giants can stall their juggernaut?
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, all the talk's been about Dart, obviously. I mean, we'll get excited for Dart, but, I mean, this Chargers team, we'll talk about the Chargers first. I mean, being the biggest skeptic, I'm probably the Chargers' number 1 skeptic. And last weekend, they really convinced me that they're for real. They turned SoFi into a home stadium. I mean, when they scored that touchdown at the end, you could see the fans jumping up and down. I mean, that's been a rare sight. It's usually 60-40 road fans, but I think I'm sold on this Chargers team now. I think Harbaugh has done a phenomenal job just toughening the team up, just getting them. Herbert is, he's bigger, he's bulkier, and he's more durable now, and he's definitely playing out of his skin. He had another 300-yard passing game last week. And, even with a running game they lost Najee Harris. It's not great. They'll stick in, Hampton, but I don't think that's really going to matter in this game. Bringing back Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson looks like his go-to guy now. I mean, Johnson was known for his drops, but he can't drop the ball anymore. He's been looking great. And there's a guy, Dante Jackson, with the Chargers. He's a corner. He's been playing out of his skin. He's just been a phenomenal player. Turn over the Giants. I'm excited, obviously, to see Jackson Dart in the pros. I watched him a lot with Ole Miss. I thought he was a really, exciting player, and he's definitely going to energize the crowd, just like Scalabo did last week. I'm concerned they're going to use Scalabo too much. I think they're going to run him into the ground. I see him more as an impact running back rather than RB1. But we'll see what a different management team does whenever Dable is gone. But from last week, it was reminiscent of week one, just clueless in the red zone, just can't do anything, can't make any plays. The Graham Gano thing just boiled my, I just couldn't believe that happened again. I mean, to have a kicker out there to be injured, it's negligence across the board. And that's not even getting to the O-line. I mean, I'm glad Andrew Thomas started. That's what I was really interested in watching last week, was how Andrew Thomas did. And he lasted a half. He played really well. And he's the difference, as the O-line goes, as he goes, the O-line goes. But, I'm nervous and I'm worried about this Giants team this week. The Chargers are firing on all cylinders. Giants defense is flattered to deceive. That front four is not getting home as much as they should be. And Carter is not being played in the position that he should be played in. I think he's playing inside linebacker, and he should be. Who knows what Bowen is thinking? He probably won't be there much longer either. I was talking to Brian last week. Dex looks disinterested. The defense was we were promised so much with the defense, and nothing has really come through just yet. But when you think about it and when you break it all down, it's just misses everywhere for this Giants team on personnel. When you look across the league, there's players that are shining that were draft picks, and there's so many misses on this Giants team with the last couple of years. Schmitz at center. I'm still not rating Thibodeau yet. I'm not sold on him. Newbin, Baker, Evan Neal doesn't even dress anymore. So, I think it's Chargers -7. I'd like the Giants to stay competitive. I know it's at home. There's going to be talk of planes flying over MetLife. There's a GoFundMe that's already raised a couple of $1,000 to pay for the pilot, so that's good. Pay for the gas as well. I can't see a situation where the Giants win. I mean, they'll get energized from Dart being out there for the first quarter or two, and then the cold reality of playing in the league will wear off when he starts getting knocked around. The Tart at DT and Tui Pilatu, and then you got Bud Dupree out there flying around, taking people's heads off. So I want to say Giants, but I just can't. This Chargers team's too good.
Brian, the Giants are taking the Dart. Will it get them to their destination?
Yeah, I think it will at some stage over the course of the season in terms of getting some victories, but ultimately I don't think it will be on Sunday. I think they'll come up short. Well, I think the pressure now kind of is significant and magnified around Brian Dable. Like, the pressure over the last few weeks was, when are you going to start Jackson Dart? Now Jackson Dart is in. Where does he go from here? There is no more get out of jail cards, because he is supposed to be this offensive guru that people suggested when they took him in, and Daniel Jones initially had a great season. But so over the course of last week, people have combed in on the play calling for Russell Wilson. Essentially, he couldn't go down the middle of the field. That's not his ammo. Couldn't do that. He was restricted in what he could do. So they're kind of referring it back to last year, where he's restricted in what Daniel Jones is doing. Now they're saying, come Sunday, we're going to see an offense that's completely reinvented, and he can open up the playbook and he can bring in all these other plays that Jackson Dart can deliver on. So maybe if that is the case and it's fruitful and it comes to production, the Giants offense will finally get going. And bear in mind, they did get going 2 weeks ago, but that was against the poor Cowboys defense, as you know well, Connor. We should be seeing a much improved offensive performance on Sunday with Jackson Dart. The reality is he's still a rookie. He's going up against one of the best defenses so far in the league, and that for me is a big ask. I think they will be competitive. I think they'll be in the game. I think, similar to other games, I think come the end of the third quarter, Giants will have an opportunity to win, but they'll come up short. Because this Chargers team are now finally catching on, Connor, as to how to win these games that in the past they would have lost. I don't think it will happen on Sunday. Chargers go to 4-0, which is a big win, bearing in mind the Ravens and the Chiefs have to play each other later in the day.
Yeah, like you guys, I thought last week in terms of the Chargers that would be one of those ones that we'd look to and say, well, are they the team? Are they the team that we want to see under Harbaugh and that their fans want to see under Harbaugh, or are they going to continue to charge her? If they are, it's not going to be this Sunday. I think they'll roll out of that one with a win. It's to Atlanta we go next, where the Falcons welcome the Commanders. Falcons fresh off getting their asses handed to them by the Panthers the previous week, 30-0 shutout there, embarrassing one for them. When we thought they turned the corner with a victory against the Vikings, what was particularly disappointing last week is that the green shoots of recovery in terms of the Atlanta pass rush just cruelly wilted after 1 week. Just nowhere were they evidently going to get to Bryce Young and show what they showed against the Vikings. Offensively, obviously everything Bijan Robinson misfired last week. Couldn't move the ball in the way they had against the Vikings. Couldn't score, of course, literally. Penix had one of the worst games he's had in a Falcons uniform, throwing a couple of terrible picks. It was all going the wrong way. Welcoming the Commanders, of course, who you see who a team are when they're facing adversity. And I know the Commanders were a team that quite a lot of people were looking at as a potential regression candidate, having gone the whole way to the NFC Championship game last year. And that seemed to be going according to the narrative when they lost that week 2 game to the Packers and looked like they were overmatched considerably in that one. But you see now playing with their backup quarterback, what they managed to do against the Raiders last week. Still got a lot going on in Washington, and I still think they're good value for this. I can't quite believe that the Falcons are favoured at home. I think the Commanders have more than enough to take them down. Brian?
I probably missed this one. Jaden Daniels, what's the status? Because obviously he didn't play last weekend. It looks like
It's still questionable.
It's a hard one to call, Connor. Bear in mind we're kind of unsure whether their quarterback is playing, and for that reason I went with the Falcons. But obviously our picks are in, the graphics are uploaded, so we can't seek a change. But it is an interesting one because if Jaden Daniels is playing, and as well as we've seen from this Falcons defense, obviously they didn't turn up last week, but what we saw over the first 2 weeks of the season, I'm still not convinced they could slow Jaden Daniels down. And Terry McLaurin is also playing. It's doubtful for Sunday, so that's an interesting dynamic. If they're not playing, that changes the game for me in the Falcons way. I think the Falcons offensively will get back on track this week, and I think they'll sneak out a victory. This is a 33-30 type of game, and I think the Falcons come out on the right side of it, which will be a bit weird, bearing in mind they just let their kicker go. That's a new kicker comes in.
So the Falcons are going to go from no points to 33 points in 1 week.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the nature of this team. From 1 week to the next, you never know what's coming. It's going to be a high-scored affair, and I think the Falcons sneak out a victory. I think the line is a point. Says it all for me, Connor. Even the bookmakers, QuinnBet, don't know what way this game is going to go. I'll lean Falcons. Not comfortable about it. Falcons.
Kieran?
I like the Commanders in this one. I just don't think the Falcons' offense has got going. I mean, Pitt's only got 135 yards through 3 games, and London only has 159. That's neither of them have a touchdown. Penix is throwing the ball all over the place. He's got his completion rate is under 60%. There's picks out there to be got, just like last week, and I like Commanders by a field goal.
It's to Jags Niners we go next. Kieran, what do you make of this one? Jacksonville up and down so far this season, and coming up against a Niners team that are short-handed but have been gutting it out and are unbeaten.
Yeah, Jags were very, very fortunate to come out on top last week. I mean, they did everything they could to throw the game away, but a couple of defensive plays got them the win. Trevor Lawrence is still, those question marks are still resounding around Trevor Lawrence. I mean, all the talk up here has been about his completion rate and his wayward passing, and that was in evidence last week. I mean, he was throwing the ball left, right, and center, throwing it above guys. He's not zoned in, or he's not keyed in on these wide receivers just yet. There's little rumbles of discontent from Brian Thomas. He hasn't got the ball as much as he'd like to. We all know what a talent he has, what a talent he is. And it's just and the penalties have been racking up for the Jaguars too, which is concerning because between penalties and drop passes, I mean, Trevor Lawrence has got a league high 11.5% drop rate. He's throwing the ball too high or too, out to the side. A lot of off-target throws. And he's only completed 55% of his passes, which is worse than Penix right now. He's second last, only to poor Cam Ward in Tennessee. But they're going up against a 49ers team that's more than likely without Purdy, without Bosa, and we know who else they're missing, Kittle and Ayuk and all those guys. So there's never been a better chance or a better opportunity for the Jags to play the 49ers. I mean, they're going on the road. It'll be decent weather. And they'll never have a better opportunity to beat them. Will they beat them? I don't think so. I think the question marks around this Jags team are going to resurface. I think Trevor still can't. He still can't protect the ball. He's prone to overthrowing receivers, and I think Robert Saleh is really going to be rubbing his hands at the prospect of just dialing it up, and getting Fred Warner just after him, because when he's pressured, he's just airballing the ball out all over the place. And there's, like I said earlier in the earlier game, there's picks out there for him for this 49ers defense, and I think it's not going to be a high scoring affair at all. But I like the 49ers grit just to get this one out. Jaguars haven't got going yet. That was a very, very fortunate win last week. They probably should have lost. The coach in the locker room, Cohen, was kind of praising their grit and saying, those are the kind of games you got to win. And, fair enough. They did win the game, but it wasn't pretty at all. And if Mac Jones is out there, I think he's just going to, hand the ball off and do all he needs to do to get that win. Probably a low scoring, like a 15-12, 16-13 kind of affair. But I like the 49ers to come out on top. They're -3, and I like them for that. So give me the Niners.
Yeah, I'm with you. If we'd have said at the start of the season that the Niners would be 3-0, I don't think any of us would have been surprised, but we would have been very surprised at the manner in which they've got there. We would have been very surprised to see that they're happy to lean on Mac Jones, not happy that Brock Purdy is out, but Mac Jones giving them some good service, looks confident. He's not perfect by any means, but he doesn't have the array of weapons that they'd like him to have. Obviously, they're leaning very heavily on Christian McCaffrey, which is what they're going to have to do on offense for the time being. You mentioned that Robert Saleh defense, which we'd called out in the offseason as being something of a game changer for San Francisco and something that would really invigorate them, and it very much has. You said that they're probably not going to be a high-scoring game because none of the Niners games have been high-scoring games. They've been able to keep teams in the clinches, and they've been able to find ways to come out on top. They're getting just enough offense to get it done. Losing Bosa obviously is a big blow on top of Kittle, on top of Purdy, and they are very much down some of their key guys. But unfortunately, given what's coming to town, I don't think that's going to matter in the way that it might with stronger opposition arriving. And the Jags have been very up and down. And we saw signs of life, and Liam Cohen was the first rookie coach to win his opening game this season, and that was a bit of a bright point for them. But they were very lucky last week. I thought, like you, if you look at who they've played, this is the stiffest test that they're going to have faced, and they're not up to it for me. I think it's Niners. Brian?
Yeah, shout out to Anthony Wootton, good friend of the show, big 49ers fan, had his company this afternoon, and he was updating me that the 49ers are going to wear white again, and the rationale behind that is they're doing that because of the weather in Santa Clara. It's really hot, so it works for them this time of the season. I'm with you. I think the 49ers, I got grief last week for selecting against them. I didn't think I was too wrong. They nearly didn't win. They didn't win 16-15, so I wasn't too far off the mark. I think you are both on the money there. I think it's like kind of a 17-13, 17-14 type of game. The 49ers get out the right side of it, which is huge for the 49ers. Bear in mind, as you said, injuries. If they can start the season at 4-0 with the build-up of injuries, it'll probably come back to haunt them. But for now, they'll get over the line. 49ers for them.
All those teams, heading into sort of 1-2, 1-3 territory as well. It's worth bearing in mind. I saw the stat being called out on some of the NFL previews earlier today when I was watching some of them. NFL preview guy kept pointing out the fact that since 1990, fewer than 1 out of 8 teams who start the season 1-3 go to the playoffs. You start the season 2-2, you have a 25% chance. So you're nearly doubling your chances of making the playoffs in any given season if you're 2-2 versus 1-3. So this is the point where the season starts to turn and will turn for either the better or for the worse for a lot of these teams. So it's a big game for Jacksonville too. But the 49ers will be sitting pretty, we all think, at 4-0. We'll take a quick break.
This is Ireland. Rugged, wild, and endlessly captivating. A land shaped by history, where ancient castles whisper stories of the past. Where world-class links golf connects you to breathtaking landscapes. And where centuries of craftsmanship and culture are blended to produce world-class whiskies, savoured as music and laughter fill the air. Adventure calls from every corner. Tradition pours from every dram. Step into landscapes that take your breath away and moments that stay with you forever. From vibrant cities full of life to warm welcomes shared with friends old and new. Golf and whiskey are just some of the ways we connect you to Ireland's culture, craft and soul. But every journey with us is about people, place and authentic experiences you'll never forget. This is more than a trip. It's the Dunes and Drams experience. Discover Ireland with us and make memories that will last a lifetime.
We got a lot of people discovering Ireland, of course, this week and this weekend, coming over with Dunes and Drams and with plenty of other operators too, including True Fan Travel, who are partnering on a big event in the Arlington Hotel this Saturday that we're very much looking forward to hosting with Brian McFadden. We'll hear a little bit from Brian McFadden in just a moment. But if you're in town after that game, make sure you check out the Arlington Hotel for Red Zone this Sunday. I know you'll be eager to see how all the other games are going after seeing the Vikings take on the Steelers in Croke Park. We will very much be looking forward to that on Saturday night, and I'm sure anyone who goes on Saturday or Sunday will have a great time. So a lot of fans knocking around there earlier on today when I was in town. I'm sure it's going to be one of the buzzier spots you can find, and only a stone's throw really from Croke Park. A handy little stroll. You can work up a thirst on your way there. It's to Ravens Chiefs that we move now. The Chiefs looking to get a bit of momentum going, Kieran, but not the easiest task in the world when you got the Ravens coming to town, who will be very much hurting after having been handled by the Lions on Monday night.
Yeah, and you think about the games over the last couple of years between these two. I mean, the Ravens are 1-5 against the Chiefs with Lamar. I mean, that's definitely sticking in their mind. However, on the flip side, Lamar is 20-4 after a loss. So there's those two things to bear in mind. But I mean, the Ravens offense, the difference here is the Ravens offense is clicking and the Chiefs is not. Ravens are scoring on 54% of the
By the
drive.
way, did we forget? I can't believe I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about the Lions. Isn't that only the second time that Lamar has ever lost to an NFC team? The Giants were the only other NFC team that's ever beaten Lamar, right?
I believe so, yeah. Yep. In the magical year of 22 for the Giants.
They really honest, Connor. The only thing we had these days.
Oh God, memories. Yeah. Yeah, and the Ravens offense, I mean, they're scoring on 54% of the drives and they're getting a touchdown on 39% of the drives. So it's not really that much of an issue on offense, but the Chiefs have not got going at all. I mean, we saw it, definitely up close and personal against the Giants last week. I mean, the Giants, they could have won. I mean, that was such a winnable game against the Chiefs. They're not firing on all cylinders. Mahomes is visibly not with it right now. Kelsey is definitely not with it. And they're kind of shorthanded on offense too. You got Hollywood Brown out there and Tyquan Thornton and a couple other guys like that, but it's not happening on offense for them right now. But obviously with defense, that's their strong point right now. But you wonder if the Chiefs are ever going to get going this year. I mean, 1-2. It's very conceivable that they get beat by the Ravens this week, purely based on ability to score. Chiefs, Arrowhead is not the dominating or the intimidating place that it was a couple of years ago. We saw that when the Eagles went in this season, and it was quiet for a lot of the game. It just didn't have that same aura, and I think it'll be similar to this. I mean, I think the Chiefs are, the Eagles in the Super Bowl really show the league that they could be gotten at. It's almost like it's almost like Star Wars when the shield went down, everybody came rushing and blown up the Death Star. And it's just, they're able to get at now. They're able to be gotten at, and the league is slowly starting to figure it out. What's in their favor, obviously, is the defense and what Spagnuolo can dial up. Now, Lamar, when he's pressured and when he's blitzed, is not the same player, obviously, that he is when he's got a clean pocket and he's able to run around and run for about 15, 20 yards. And Lamar just continues to put up huge numbers. I mean, multiple passing touchdowns in all 3 games this year. But what would be concerning for the Ravens is he took a career high 7 sacks against Detroit. I mean, they just put him on the ground time and time again. And the Chris Jones and Drew Tranquil and George Karlaftis are going to be looking at that saying, yeah, I can do that too. I'm ready to do that. So that's what would be worrying for me if I was a Ravens fan. But really the storyline for me is the Chiefs. I mean, if they go 1-3, I mean, what's after that? I mean, they have the Jaguars on Monday Night Football, I think week 5. And that'll be a tough one. But it's for me, it's really, can the Chiefs match the Ravens' dynamic offense? And they haven't shown that they can just yet. I mean, Ravens are always good for 30 plus points a game, and we see what the Chiefs are putting up. So it comes down to firepower, and like a lot of these kind of matchups, you put the offense up against each other, and the Ravens win that every time. And even they match up well with defense. What'll keep them in the game, I think, is what Spagnuolo does. He's just gonna do what he does. It's gonna be no look defense. It's gonna be just gimmicks, funny plays, blitzing, falling back, showing 3, showing 4. He's just going to mix everything up for Lamar. So I do expect Lamar to get sacked a bunch of times, but I do think Lamar has got enough in his armor to spread the ball out. And obviously with Derrick Henry just charging through, I mean, that's going to be a huge test for that Chiefs run D. I just think that the Ravens have too much for the Chiefs, especially at the stage of the season where the Chiefs just can't seem to get anything done. So I like the Ravens on the road. I think the line is minus 2.5. It's probably going to be a field goal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was 6 or 7.
Brian, neither of these teams want to drop to 1-3. It's backs against the wall for both of them. That's usually when you see the best of the Chiefs, but will we see that this weekend?
I'm going to side with the Ravens in this one. Well, I used that George Bush term, "Fill me once," Connor. Remember back in the day where you stuttered to that? Because that's what it feels right now. Like I'm with Kieran. I wasn't convinced by the Chiefs last weekend. To be honest, they should be 0-3. The Giants should have found a way to win the game. They dominated for large parts. They had some drives, couldn't find the end zone again, and the Chiefs got away with one. And right now, they just seem to be getting away with. They're getting away in terms of they're hanging in these games. So people are saying, okay, these games can turn on them, like the Eagles game. And it was like people say, oh, they could have won. It was the interception. They're not playing at the level in which we've seen in the past. Their offense is not in sync. Patrick Mahomes is clearly frustrated. Again, Patrick Mahomes is having to do Mahomes stuff to get over the line. Like these games, like the case in point last weekend, years ago, this team they were blowing them out. And it's just not the case anymore. And I think the Ravens are a team that offensively are still able to do a lot of damage on teams, and that for that reason, I just don't think they can go toe to toe with this Ravens offense. Yeah, I think they'll find a way to slow Lamar down, but consistently over 4 quarters, I don't see it. I think the Ravens are in for a good victory come Sunday night.
Yeah, I hear what you're both saying, but the Chiefs be the Chiefs. I still think KC back to the wall. I'm going to pick Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to find a way. As we've seen them do so many times in the past. All I've ever seen the Ravens do is lose these type of games. All I've ever seen the Chiefs do is win them. So I'm going to go with Kansas City on this one. Bears travel to Vegas to take on the Raiders in our next game. Best game that Caleb Williams has played as a professional last weekend. A lot of joy in Chicago, seeing finally some of the Ben Johnson razzle-dazzle that he was brought to Chicago to bring to town. That little flea flicker play and the bomb down the field to Luther Burden. Evidence that maybe the tide is turning in Chicago. But how much of that was down to the opposition? A huge amount of it is the answer there. They played the Cowboys with a defense, and we'll talk about them in our next game coming up that can very much be got at. The Matt Eberflus defensive touch doesn't seem to have translated in Dallas so far. As somebody joked over the weekend, Matt Eberflus always said he'd end up making Caleb Williams look good. He's just found that the best way to do it was to be coaching the defense that Caleb Williams was playing against. That said, the Raiders, not the hardest out at the moment. Were very much handled by the Commanders last week. Honourable exception for Trey Tucker, of course. 3 touchdowns, 145 yards against the Commanders. He put in a day's shift. I think the big question mark here on the winning and losing of this game will be, can the Bears keep Caleb Williams upright? First time in his career that he managed not to be sacked last week. Changes in the Bears' offensive line haven't quite been paying dividends. That was their best showing. But how much of that, again, is down to the fact that the Cowboys' pass rush is just pretty much non-existent without Micah Parsons, and they're giving up explosive plays all over the place. Raiders' defense, a different animal. Max Crosby will look to get some joy. I do think, though, that the Bears are going to manage to string together their second win, even though they're slight underdogs, only a point on the road in Vegas. I think it's a Chicago win. Brian?
I'm a bit surprised by the line, Connor. I would have felt this was a 2.5 point game in the Bears' favour in terms of being the favourites. I'm surprised they're underdogs. Every start of the season, we have this bounce game for new head coaches. And for me, that bounce game was Pete Carroll in week 1 beating the Patriots. Because what we've seen over the course of the last 2 games, the Chargers game, they were non-existent offensively. And last week, they had some bright spots, but their defense last weekend wasn't at the races against Marcus Mariota, with all due respect, is kind of to the back end of his career. And the Commanders put a number upon them. I think we're starting to slowly see the Raiders team that were there last year are going to struggle over the course of the season. But I think this is more about the Bears than it is the Raiders. Connor, I do pick the Bears, but if the Bears don't win this one on Sunday, it kind of signifies where they're at. They've had a great win against the Cowboys, but was it down to the Cowboys, or was it down to a really explosive offensive performance by the team? I think they have to win this game to kind of prove that Ben Johnson knows what's going down. The team understand them. The fans understand what they're trying to build. If they come out on Sunday with a defeat, it just everything goes back to what it was. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Bears win.
Kieran?
Yeah, I like the Bears to win this. I'm still not sold on the Raiders. I think that was a bit of a, especially Trey Tucker. That was a one-off. I don't think you're going to see a game like that for the rest of the season. And they're just too shy on offense. Genty's having a real tough go of it. He's not able to get going at all. So I like the Bears.
Sunday Night Football, we got some good candidates this week, and you might have thought that Eagles Bucks would be the game to flex in there. But, we got something pretty exciting too. It's the Micah Parsons revenge game. Is it a revenge game? He got what he wanted. The Packers traveling to Arlington to take on the Cowboys, and the Packers catching 6.5 points on the road, Kieran. Despite the fact that they fell heavily against Cleveland last week and maybe had some of the shine come off what had otherwise looked like an unstoppable start to the season for them.
Yeah, and I did the instant reaction show with Kieran on Sunday, and I was explaining that I wouldn't be too downhearted if I was a Packers fan. They just came up against a defense that just played their minds off. I mean, sometimes you just come up against a team, and for whatever reason, they just go out in all cylinders, and they had no answer to them. There's no shame in getting absolutely demolished by a defense that was playing out of their mind. So, but the Packers for this game, I mean, it's funny with Parsons. I mean, he still has a suite at Cowboy Stadium at AT&T, and he was saying that there's no refunds on it, so he's gonna keep his seat up there and probably bring a boatload of people with him in the Dallas area just to annoy Jerry a little bit more. And there's going to be a lot of Jerry talk this week. He'll be all over Sunday Night Football and with his sound bites, and he's going to continue to say that
there's going to be a lot of Jerry talk this week. Can you name me a week over the last 40 years when it hasn't been a lot of Jerry talk?
Well, he's going to be everywhere this week. He's going to be having impromptu press conferences everywhere he goes. He'll be at Walmart or whatever store he goes to where people get stuff for him. He'll be in the parking lot, and there'll be microphones all around him and ask them about the game and, pushing them on the Parsons thing. But, the Parsons trade, that adds a lot of spice to it. But maybe last year or 23 or even 22, you might think this might be a bit more of a competitive game. But the way the Cowboys are playing right now, this could very well be a repeat of the 2023 playoff game where the Packers went in and just demolished the Cowboys. They're not in a great place right now. I mean, Dak will say that he wasn't benched last week for Joe Milton and he was just rested, I guess, but it just never got going last week. And I think that Schottenheimer does have one eye on giving Milton a try for a game or two just to see what he has. But like I said, despite the loss to Cleveland, I wouldn't be too downhearted with the Packers. I think they put up a hell of a performance, in week 2, and I think. Now and again, you'll have that down performance and you'll come up against a team that's just, destined to win. Dallas is allowing 3 points per drive. They just can't stop the run. We saw that. If you can't stop the Giants, what chance do you have against a premier team in the NFL? And Green Bay still hasn't allowed a touchdown in the first half. That's a huge stat. That defense is just doing really well. And they're converting on first downs on 48% of the third downs. I'm sorry. So everything's going in their favor, and it's kind of trending their way and against the Cowboys. The only way that I can see anything really happening, and I can't really because that Cowboys pass rush is really non-existent. You get Jordan Love out of the pocket and you pressure him, he's a different quarterback. He's not able to handle it as well as other quarterbacks in the league. But the problem is the Cowboys really have zero pass rush. Notwithstanding Parsons being gone, but there's not really much else, even if he was there. CeeDee Lamb is out. Everyone knows the ball is going to Pickens. You're going to double team Pickens. There is no run game to speak of. Javonte Williams is really not a premier kind of running back in this league. So I think Cooper Beebe is out as well as Tyler Booker. So the problems on the O-line. So there's holes everywhere in this Dallas team. It's a perfect time for the Pack to go in. There's going to be probably, I'm going to guess, about 60-40 Packers fans, because they travel so well, and the Cowboys fans are, looking at a 1 and 2, and probably a good time to sell a ticket and watch the game at home. So I can see the Pack are going into AT&T, take the stadium over, and will that team on to probably a 10-point win when all is said and done.
I agree with that. I think the Packers are very much in control of their destiny. That loss to Cleveland last week is one that's going to sting. It doesn't really take the momentum out of what's been a great start to the season, and it doesn't change what I would have thought about Green Bay before the season even started. Never mind before they added Micah Parsons to what was already looking like a pretty formidable Jeff Hafley coached defensive unit, and he's been a force multiplier alongside Rashawn Gary and what they've already got up front, and everything else looks exactly where it should be for me. The one question is going to be something that we're going to look at later on in the season in the playoffs, which is, have they learned the lesson from that kind of loss? Can Jordan Love contain himself in those moments? Because that game was there for the winning, regardless of how frustrating their afternoon or evening had been against Cleveland. They absolutely had it in their own hands and they let it slip. It's special teams failing, obviously, which came back to haunt them. But you've also got to look at a terrible pick by Jordan Love on a ball he didn't need to throw. A really questionable play, and one that will really annoy him. But he's got to find a way to just not do that in those big spots. I don't think that's even going to be a factor against this Cowboys team for all the reasons you've outlined, Kieran. I mentioned briefly in passing when we were talking about the Bears, the Eberflus defensive touch, which doesn't seem in any way to have worked in Dallas so far. He could be on the road to being the sacrificial lamb before the season is too much older if that keeps happening. They don't seem to be able to get home with the pass rush. They're giving up explosive plays for fun. Nothing's happening there. Offensively, they've looked good at times. Last week, pretty a dishonorable exception. 2 red zone turnovers for Dak. Struggled to convert third downs against the Bears. Couldn't run the ball well, as you say. That's a worrying trend. And without CD, it's just hard to see how they can hurt the Packers in any way, shape, or form. And it's hard to see how they can hang in the game in any way, shape, or form. I think Green Bay will have their way with them. Brian?
Well, they've got, as of the last hour, Darren Bland and Trayvon Diggs are expected to come back and play. So that's 2 quarterbacks I think will help in the secondary. I'm going to go with the surprise. I think the Cowboys, Sunday Night Football, I think you're asking me it's Jerry Jones' week. I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry Jones does the speech before the game and says, guys, I'll find a way to give you the most absolute massive bonus I can find in my back pocket if you can just, get me out of this game with a victory. So at least for a couple of weeks, I'll look like I'm the man and I knew what I was doing all along. I think the Cowboys, despite the Lamb injury...
I'll give you some of the money that I saved by letting our best player go.
Yes, absolutely. Well, sometimes it's a breakout game for a player, even after magnitude of Pickens, when the main guy is out the door. Maybe Pickens has a huge game. I'm going to go for the shock. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think the Cowboys offense can find a way to do stuff against this defense. And you're talking about Eberflus. Eberflus played the Bears. If I'm keep me honest here, Conor, Eberflus last year against the Packers, they played reasonably well defensively against the Packers last year.
They should have won both games. They won the one in Lambeau, and they were a blocked field goal away from winning the one at Soldier Field.
So he has form. He has form in terms of how to navigate performance and defensively. So maybe he can take out some stuff from his previous bag of tricks and find a way to slow down this Packers offense. I'll go Cowboys. I think Sunday Night Football, we're primed for a shock. This is the big one.
We give the schedulers in the NFL an awful lot of credit, and they deserve it, and credit where credit's due. But Jesus Christ, Monday Night Football, Jets, Dolphins, we could all do without that one, Brian.
Oh, we are previewing this one again now. Well, look, the Dolphins are wearing a snazzy outfit on Monday. That's the big thing I've seen today. It's a 12:15 kickoff. Jets fans here would be happy because it allows them to watch most of it, if not all of it, and get to bed at 3 o'clock, a reasonable hour at 3 o'clock. I think I've gone Jets. I've been bitten by this Dolphins team. I thought they would outperform the Patriots 2 weeks ago. They gave a good account of themselves last weekend. Dolphins fans would argue they should have won if it was for the interception late on. And I think they'll be in the game, but something strikes me that the Jets were close to winning last week. And I think right now the Jets, I said that Monday, despite the loss, are playing for their head coach, and ultimately that will lead to a victory on Monday night. Jets get off the slide with their first game of the season.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste too many words on this one, but I agree. I think the Jets are going to win this one on the road. I think they're playing for their coach. I think they've been up and down, but there's something happening there. I'd be cautiously, given that it's the Jets, optimistic. They should have won last week. They will win this week, Kieran.
Despite the fact that it will be a huge Jets contingent down there in Miami, I just like the Dolphins. I don't know. At home, I mean, I can't pick the Jets anyway unless I'm kind of forced into it, but I like to give me the Dolphins by a field goal.
Yeah, and if you're not liking Jets Dolphins, your other option on Monday Night Football is not necessarily going to get the juices going either. That's Bengals Broncos. Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus. I mean, Bengals Broncos. That could have looked good about 3 weeks ago. But
yeah, that's very true. When the schedule was being set, this one looked tasty.
Yeah, and this like a lot of teams in the NFL right now, both offenses really haven't got going. I mean, I thought Browning, when he came in against the Jags and did a job, I thought that was the start of something, and he could repeat the 2023 kind of performance where he got him to almost to the playoffs. But last week was that was tough watching. It really was. I mean, he never got into any kind of rhythm, and they never got going at all. And the Broncos have struggled as well, trying to, Bo Nix has been struggling trying to get the ball going. I mean, you got two really good wide receivers in Mims and Sutton, but he hasn't been able to get the ball downfield. I mean, Bengals are really suffering with that. Burrow. I mean, they can't get a run game going either. And Jamar Chase is, I mean, you got Higgins and Chase, and now that all that money that's out in the field, and you got Browning right now is thrown to them, and it's not working. Nix with the Broncos. I mean, he's struggling too. It's two quarterbacks who really get their offenses going, and it's really the defense that's going to be the talk of this game, and that's the Broncos defense. Just phenomenal unit. I mean, even the secondary alone, Hufanga, Brandon Jones, Pat Surtain. I mean, Pat Surtain is an absolute weapon. He really is. And even someone like Jaquan McMillan back there as well. And they're gonna shut down Chase and Higgins because, again, the Broncos know where the ball is going. Chase Brown for the Bengals has not been able to get going at all. He's been a real big disappointment. He can't get any yardage. So they know that the ball is going to be going up in the air, and that secondary will just be, on air raid mode and just be looking for those picks. I mean, Browning he had a real rough time. I think he's going to be in for another rough weekend. Kind of a lower scoring affair, but being that both teams are having a real struggle putting points up, probably, similar to the Niners game, probably like a 19-14, 19-15 kind of game. Just that pass rush from the Broncos and the secondary is going to give Browning nightmares. So I like the Broncos in this one.
Brian?
I think there's trouble brewing in Denver, having lost two difficult games to late field goals and didn't really play the level we expected against the Titans in week one. But I think, bearing in mind where the Bengals are with the rookie quarterback, with the backup quarterback that really struggled last week, I think this is too big an ask. I think to be clear on here, I think the Broncos win.
Yeah, same for me. I don't think all is well in Denver. I think Sean Payton massively overtalked where his team was at heading on into this season, and I don't think it's going to go in a particularly promising direction from here unless they can make some serious changes, but I do think they'll come out on the right end of this one. All right, that is our week 4 preview. Stay tuned, as we were saying, for lots more content heading up to Vikings Steelers over the weekend, including obviously our separate preview of that game, the first ever Irish regular season game taking place on Sunday at 3:30 in Dublin.